Welcome, everyone. This is a special edition of the Newsroom, and we have with us today Joni Alexander-Robinson, who's running for mayor. This was the first of a series of interviews with mayoral candidates. Thank you for joining us, Joni. Let's just get started. I've got too many questions for you today, but
Okay.
Just off the top, are you running for mayor, and what makes you the preferred candidate?
What makes me the preferred candidate and why am I running for mayor? I'm running for mayor because I don't feel the current administration is going in the best direction to handle a lot of the issues that the city of Pine Bluff has. And I also feel that the current administration is not capitalizing off of some of the good things we have going on in the city of Pine Bluff. I feel that I'm the best candidate, or the preferred, is that what you asked? The preferred candidate, because I plan on doing the job. I think a lot of people, when they run, their platform is more about creating a new Pine Bluff versus dealing with the Pine Bluff we currently have. And so that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I have worked my way up through the ranks. You know, I've worked in the city clerk's office. I was chief of staff to the mayor. I served on the Pine Bluff City Council. So I know city government, I know the departments, and right now citizens are already paying taxes for services that the city should be offering them. And when you talk to most citizens and you ask them, do you know what departments the city has? And they can't name more than 4. But the city has about 17 departments, and 12 of them offer direct city services, and they're not as efficient as they should be. And I think the real power of the mayor is day-to-day operations and making sure that those departments are operating efficiently, and people, the taxes that we're already paying as citizens, that you're getting your money's worth with using that role of the executive branch.
Okay. You mentioned your time on the council. You were on the council and left after one term.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you leave, and why do you want to come back now?
Well, I left the council. Our position basically became a formality. And I'll give you an example. When I was on the council, Bruce Lockett did legislation for rental property registration, right? Great legislation. It would help us have updated contact information for rental property managers and things of that nature. It passed, but guess what, Byron? It was never enforced. And so that kind of is how our government became, even our legislative power. We had things that wasn't being enforced. When it came to the budget, things were not transparent anymore. Things were being hidden. And it was almost like the council was just used for the formalities that's required by state law, you know, just to make sure that city government is still going on legally. But me working for the former mayor, I know the impact that the council can have on a community. And when you're running for these offices, you work really hard to get there, and sitting at those meetings and just knowing that my position wasn't respected and that we really wasn't using them to their full advantage, I decided that because I had a platform and a following, I was going to get off the council and create like a watchdog community organization where I educate the citizens on city government so their involvement will actually be impactful.
Okay. What will Pine Bluff look like 4 years after you're elected? And you could compare that to like what Pine Bluff would look like if Shirley Washington is reelected or Vivian Flowers is elected. How's Pine Bluff going to look different?
The difference will be...
Hold on. Johnny dropped the mic.
Is it in the mic spot or the...
Let me see. The joys
The
are
mic
going
is not
on.
on you anymore, is it?
Well, when she dropped it, it went out. Try talking now.
Testing 1 2 1 2.
Is that even on your?
Is he?
Yeah, when it fell, it
Oh my goodness.
went out.
Well, we go back to table mic.
We might just have to.
Are we still live?
Yeah, this is the joy of life. How you handle it. say something?
Testing 1 2 1 2.
Keep going.
Mic test 1 2 1 2. Pine Bluff Commercial Newsroom. Nothing.
You'll
I think
be.
I forgot to say I'm Byron Tate with the Pine Bluff commercial.
Hey, I guess you can tell them now. Should we?
Okay, we're just gonna use the ambiance sound. Take it off for me.
Table mic.
Yep.
Should we? You want to like start over?
We live. Technical difficulties, it happens. Thank you, thank you.
I'll try to speak up.
So the question is, what is Pine Bluff gonna look like in 4 years after you're elected, compared to what it might look like under other administrators, other people running?
Okay, city government will be organized. Customer service will be better. Our departments will have more accountability. We will have more data. Dealing with everything, dealing with city government will be more transparent. Budget-wise, the council will be more involved so that they can truly use their authority to do the things that they have access to do. And I'm hoping that our youth will have more to do. And I'm hoping that crime, we will at least have a picture painted of more preventative measures by using data and accountability and citizens having access to information and being able to be more involved.
Okay. You've got, if you're elected, you've got Joni as mayor. Your husband is the county judge. Are you getting any pushback from that possible confluence of power?
I'm not getting any pushback, but I have heard, some people put out there that it's too much power in one household. And, it's funny to me because no one says anything when you have a council member currently whose father-in-law is over city department, who that same council member's dad is on the city council and is over that father-in-law department committee. No one says anything. No one says anything when you have a council member that is a father and son on the city council right now. No one said anything when we had a council member who was married to the city clerk. No one says anything when we have cousins in the state legislature. And these are all people under the same government umbrella, the same budget. So to try to use that as a reason not to support me, you're not necessarily saying I wouldn't be a good mayor. You're basically making it seem as if these two separate governments, which is city and county, meaning that one does not have authority over the other. Pine Bluff is one city under the Jefferson County umbrella. But Jefferson County deals with everything outside of corporate city limits. That's why you have municipalities. But if you're judging me for this job or this role as mayor, let it be by my own merits. I don't want it to be because I chose to become a wife. I want people to look at my background and my experience thus far for me coming to this very moment.
Okay. My next set of questions is on Go Forward. You were a big fan of Go Forward, or at least a fan of Go Forward in the early years, as a lot of people were. What was the straw that broke the camel's back in your evolution away from Go Forward? And considering your change of heart, can the public trust your judgment?
Great question. So there were, I guess it's two different straws that broke the same camel's back. So I don't know if you remember, but the first time that I was speaking out against the tax, it wasn't as, what am I trying to say? It wasn't as strong as the second time. The first time, me being on the council, first of all, the division that this community has seen under this current administration partner with the Go Forward tax is something I've never been a fan of. But also, we're getting
the way it divides the community.
Yeah, the way it divides the community, I've never seen anything like it. And you can't even express yourself or have a difference of opinion anymore without it becoming like now you're isolated or not a part of this and we're not sharing information. But even outside of that, we're giving you millions of dollars and you're not even starting anything. You're having groundbreakings and you're not starting any construction. When I'm trying to get information about, well, how is this money being spent? there is no clear answer. You know, everything was kind of smoke and mirrors. So that was when the council, when I was on there, was constantly, not constantly, a few times they were voting against Go Forward, you know, trying to move the money. One time I almost gave in and did it. But the reason why I did not is because I knew that if we had made that decision, the failure of Go Forward would have been blamed on the city council not allowing them to use their resources. So I was happy that the tax was about to expire and go to the ballot. And that way I can come out and use my platform and truly tell the citizens, just black and white, here are receipts, here's paperwork and documentation. So the first time it did not pass, I start hearing that they were going to bring it back. So I start FOIing everything with the city. And when I start seeing Ryan being able to directly make a communication with the city's finance chair to mail a $300,000 check to a P.O. box with no invoices attached, sending text messages to get $250,000 on behalf of urban renewal, that made me completely against it.
When they've got their own
Board
director.
Yeah, they have their own director, and it made me completely against it because not only are you all not, I guess, filling up to the promises that you made, you all are directly circumventing city government. The rumors that people were saying was true. You are, I guess, basically acting like your own government. And so, to me, for it to not only be that way, my biggest issue is the lack of accountability. No one ever publicly said, okay, you're right. We were doing this wrong. We should not have done this way. It's like the more information you put out about them, even with receipts, they fought even harder to put out more misinformation that was just louder than the actual truth. And that makes me not trust the organization.
So speaking of the ballots and failing twice, you know, I see Mayoral wrote a story in Sunday's paper basically simply asking what Go Forward had planned in the wake of the not one but two turndowns at the polls. CEO Ryan Watley gave him kind of a mushy answer, certainly not clear about the future, and Tommy May, who runs Go Forward, didn't respond to questions. In as clear a language as you can muster, tell Pine Bluff what you would say. Tell Pine Bluff where you stand on Go Forward and what you would say if Go Forward representatives were sitting here today.
If Go Forward representatives were sitting here today,
Where you stand, what
where I
would you
stand
tell them?
first,
Yeah.
where I stand with Go Forward is I have no confidence. And I'm not just blaming it on Ryan, because even though Ryan was the CEO, he had a full board that was governing him. So even when his mistakes were being made public, to me, that board was not holding him accountable. So it doesn't matter if you replace him.
So take him out, put somebody else in.
Yeah,
That
it
doesn't
doesn't
do it for
matter.
you.
You still have this same board that was allowing these mishaps to happen. If people dealing with Go Forward was sitting here right now, I would tell them they're not good listeners. You know, you all are hard to tell the truth to. And you feel that because you have this viewpoint of Pine Bluff, or you feel that Pine Bluff is this certain type of way, that everyone else has to either agree with you 100% or just get out of the way. And when you're dealing with tax dollars, I know on the private side, that's usually how it is. But when you are dealing with tax dollars, you have to be held to the same account as the public dollars. Right now with the city, any line item we have, a citizen, any citizen, can go FOI how all the money is spent to the penny. You cannot do that with the Go Forward tax. Then they use the excuse, well, the private donors don't want people to know who they are. Well, that's fine. No one's asking who they are, but you can still let us know how much is coming in, because you all are posting reports on social media saying that you've been working with $50 million. Well, what has it gone to? What have you used it for? And so because of that, and to me it seems like wordplay and manipulation and just marketing, I don't support it. And you got to have a heck of a marketing plan when you can convince an impoverished community to add more taxes to themselves when the taxes they already have are not being spent and used the way that they are supposed to be used for the services that the city is already supposed to be offering. And my last point is the duplication of services. We have economic and community development. They do down payment assistance. They can rehab houses. They can give incentives to public safety. We have code enforcement. If we were giving them more than $80,000 a year, and we was giving them the same amount we was giving urban renewal to tear down houses, guess what? They could tear down twice as many as urban renewal. Urban renewal charged twice the amount that our city bids it out to small business contractors. So not only are we tearing down more houses for cheaper, we're allowing citizens in the community with a business that does those type of things to gain income from doing it. And a citizen can go to code enforcement and they can FOI the city and they can see what contractor did what and how much was paid. And I think if Go Forward has the pool on the private side, they should still use that pool and raise money. But that just because you have that access to those type of people and those type of dollars do not mean that you can gatekeep that access and hold a city hostage and we have to give you a tax just for you to allow us to benefit from your friends in high places.
What do you think's going on with them apparently unable to say, we're going to try in November or we're done?
I think it's the same thing they've always done. I think a lot of people that they're waiting on this mayoral election and they're going to see how they can move on further. But my thing is, for Go Forward, for any nonprofit, for anyone running for this office, I think before we ask the citizens to commit to any new tax, we need to first organize our city and make sure that we know where the true deficiencies are that are backed up with actual data and have to do with and serve a municipal purpose. I think that's the least we can do before we ask the citizens to commit to another tax when we have not been good stewards of the current taxes that we are receiving in revenue now.
So on the way here, I drove past coming down Cherry and then Fifth and over Walnut. You see a lot of property that you and I, as citizens of Pine Bluff, own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the city property.
Mm-hmm.
The Crown Hotel,
Mm-hmm.
The bus station, a lot of vacant property downtown. That's all going to come. That's all going to come back on the city. Which I don't know. Maybe it was you. Maybe it was Ivan Whitfield. But when it was being purchased, it was like, we are going to end up owning this as a city. What's wrong with that picture?
Our city, to me, we're not organized and we don't really have the proper departments to be in property management, especially for commercial property. So not only do we have this burden, we have a burden of buildings that are unfit for occupancy. So we have that burden. Now we're not even receiving taxes, property taxes, from these properties because the city owns them. And I think it goes to show you that people were just winging it, because you getting these properties, it makes a good headline, but the true fact of the matter is, what was your actual plan? Yes, you purchased some properties downtown and you did a facelift on the front of them, but who's going to purchase these when they have to invest $600,000 to $1.2 million to retrofit them or to upgrade them just by code? That's not even including their fixtures and decorations.
Right.
And their inventory.
Well, that's just the buildings that they have spruced up.
Yeah.
The others aren't even to that extent.
They
and
are
then
not.
Some of them are just blank pieces of property, just ground.
Yeah, and when you look at that amount that we spent, we haven't received a return on our investment for anything that we've done when the city was partnering with that tax.
So one other question that sort of runs into urban renewal. Are you team Marriott Hotel or in replacing the old Plaza Hotel? You know, it wasn't supposed to cost the city anything. I think you were maybe on the council when they said it's not gonna be a risk, because I remember Glenn Brown Senior saying, well, if somebody else is taking the risk, then okay.
Yeah.
But then they rated urban renewals, piggy bank for, was it 2.9 million or 3?
It was close to 3,
Yeah.
yeah.
For that, are you a fan of that? I mean, we had a story over the weekend about the hotel and at the casino that's will be starting here soon. They've already started on an event center. Some towns would have enough wherewithal to populate both of those. I don't. Is Pine Bluff? Should we have a hotel down there? Is it going to cost the city a bunch of money? I've asked about 6 questions.
I'll say this: I am a fan of Marriott's. You know, I prefer to stay at Marriott's. But from an economic standpoint, most people are building hotels off of the interstate. They're not really in the inner city. From historical context, when we had the Plaza Hotel there, it was only in the green for 7 years from when it was first built.
Was it that long?
Yeah, 7 years. So after that, it was always in the red. So even when we were having the dog shows, the Jehovah Witnesses, when we were having King Cotton, the first King Cotton, that hotel still was not bringing in
pretty much its
money.
heyday.
Exactly, in its heyday.
It was in the red.
And the stipulation from most of the council members when we created the committee for the hotel board was we are not voting on this unless you can assure us that not one penny of tax dollars has to go to this hotel. We had opinions from the attorneys, we had opinions from representatives from the companies assuring us of that. So we go through our budget session and we need some money for Jimmy Cunningham. Urban Renewal says they don't have it to give it to him. The next year comes.
Even though they had parked his money with Urban Renewal.
Exactly. So the following year comes, no bank would approve for that hotel like they thought that the banks would. But the one that did said you're going to also have to have skin in the game and wanted them to give $3 million. We'll come to find out the way they wanted to spend the $3 million, you can't spend tax dollars that way. So that stalled the progress with the hotel. Later on, they were applying for a USDA grant, right? I don't know if it was approved. I heard that it was, but it's not a grant in the traditional sense. This is a type of grant that if the city defaults on the loan for the hotel, that USDA will pay a certain percentage. But what I want you to hear is if the city defaults, this hotel is going to cost anywhere around approximately $24 million. The city of Pine Bluff right now, we have debt at about $37 to $42 million. You mean to tell me we're okay?
We got outstanding debt.
Yes, we have outstanding debt for other things currently right now. And most of those things have served a municipal purpose. I will say that. But you mean to tell me we're going to add $24 million of debt when our street department doesn't have any equipment younger than 2004? When we have 3 street sweepers and none of them are working? That we're going to obligate our city to pay for a hotel for $24 million. It doesn't make any sense. And then an issue that I have with a lot of things that have come up in initiatives during the time of the current administration mixed with go forward is the city has become in direct conflict or competition with businesses that we already have. We already have hotels here. Why are we not doing something to help them upgrade their facilities or to make the stay better or to help them get a different flag flown or, an upgraded version? But we're going to build a hotel right in the middle of downtown. And you think just because you build a hotel, now we're going to have conferences here when our convention center isn't even designed for the way conferences are done now? You're saying basketball tournaments? Would we even have King Cotton right now if we were not paying for the players and their parents to fly here and travel here and feeding them? And then you have the casino that is about to build a hotel. So all I'm saying is I think the idea of it is great if Pine Bluff didn't have the type of needs that we have to the extent that we have them. But to obligate ourselves $24 million for a hotel when we have so many other things that need to be looked at and considered, I think that's asinine.
I had a conversation with somebody who used to be more involved in hotels, developing them, finding places for them, and he said the very same thing. He said most hotels, people want to stay at the freeway, there's where I'm going to stay, I'll eat over there and I'll be gone the next morning.
Yeah, exactly.
And I believe all this rides on occupancy of 70%. Is it 70%?
I don't
like for
remember.
30 years.
Yeah.
Like at first it's not quite that high, but very quickly it ramps up to 70%. I don't know. I'm not a hotel.
And most cities aren't either. Most cities do not get in the hotel business. And
That just sounds like a lot of people.
yeah.
7 days a week, 365 days a year.
And then they're coming here, and what are they going to do? You know, do you really think that all it takes is a hotel to have large groups to come and visit your city? And I get that. That's where we want to be. Make that a part of our 10-year, 15-year plan. But right now, I feel like we are so focused on getting outsiders to want to come here. We're so focused on getting outsiders to think everything is going great, where the actual citizens who are living here right now, all of them are not happy. All of them are not satisfied. Can we invest that same amount of money and attention to the people who live here in the city, to the people who are raising their kids here in the city?
You know, we could probably spend 30 minutes talking about this, but you know, the A&P Commission, their job, they collect taxes from restaurants and hotels, and they're supposed to be promoting tourism.
Yeah.
And yet they spend the vast majority of their money just keeping the convention center afloat.
Just for operations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some cities, I think Fort Smith has taken their whole convention and just outsourced it. It's like you run it. Is Pine Bluff there? Should we even have the convention center on our books?
I will put it like this. A&P is spending upwards of 60% to sustain the convention center, right? To supplement their budget. And they came back asking for more.
Right.
And like, I think the millions, like a million and some
Well,
dollars.
you know, they got an air conditioner goes out and it's a ton of money.
And so the state average of supplementing a convention center is like 15%. And we're supplementing them 60-something%. So those businesses who have that hamburger tax, which is mainly your restaurants and your food trucks,
Right.
and the hotels, of course, this is not benefiting them. Those dollars are supposed to be used to benefit those people, to get tourism here, and to hopefully allow tourists to come and patronize our various businesses and establishments.
It's just not a penalty for operating.
Exactly,
It's
which
supposed
is
to
how
be-
it's being used. And I think to keep coddling the convention center operations and not calling a spade, and basically saying, you're not doing a good job of running this convention center. Every event that you have, we don't make our money back. You can't say, while I'm waiting on a hotel to get here, what are you doing right now? Have you talked to even the local people who used to rent the convention center out? We don't have all the graduations we used to have there anymore. We don't have all the banquets we used to have there anymore. And the thing that makes it difficult to just say, cut it off, are for the innocent people who work there, who have nothing to do with it not making revenue, but this is how they pay their bills. This is how they feed their children. I don't know what the solution is, but I think it's going to have to be hard questions. Does it need to be a seasonal facility? Do they need to allow outside caterers to come in outside of this list that they only make you choose from? Do they have to go down on their rates? I think the conversation needs to be had, because right now, knowing that this commission is going to fill in whatever deficit you have, I feel like we're pacifying a problem, and it's only getting worse and worse.
Okay. So Pine Bluff ended the year with 28 homicides. 11, I meant to check on that. I believe our story said 11 of those were teenagers. An uncomfortably large number. Not that 28 is comfortable by any means. That number puts us at 11 times the national average. And really more dangerous, from my look online, more dangerous than the most dangerous big city in the United States, which came in as St. Louis. So we have this crisis, this humanitarian kind of crisis of people being murdered here at a far greater rate than anywhere else, or most other places. And you have a municipal crisis, and you've talked about this before. It's like, who comes here? Who would want to come here? How do you get a business to come here, or a family to come here? Industry. So where does this end?
I don't know where it ends, but I think for it not to even be acknowledged publicly is an issue. For the current administration to not say anything about just the loss of life, period, but especially when it comes to young people. And I don't think people understand the impact of when a young person dies. That's trauma. That's 4 different families who are experiencing a loss, and it's already hard losing someone, but it's even harder when they die at the hands of someone else, when someone else has the audacity to take their life. And like I said earlier, data. We're not collecting any data on anything. We don't have resources for victims in this community, even though we have things in place for victims, like, for instance, the prosecuting attorney's office. That was created to be an advocate for the victims. Your police departments is here to not only protect and serve, but they are also here to help victims. When people lose a loved one, there is no outreach, there is no follow-up, there is not even any sentiments that's going on in this community. And it's almost like people have kind of, it's killed some type of spirit inside of the people of Pine Bluff, because we know that if we're not doing something about it or addressing it, even when the next year rolls around, in the back of our minds, we know some more kids are going to die this year. Some more kids are going to be murdered. And for us to not have those conversations in a way that's beneficial to equipping the people who address that with more resources, in a way to help these families, in a way to partner with these schools to try to create a profile to prevent a lot of these things, it's going to keep happening. And not only is it going to keep happening, Byron, it's going to get worse. The children are going to get younger, and it's going to be more of them. And I don't know.
We had a 14-year-old.
14.
And then the 2 kids that were in a car. One I think was 14.
I thought
16.
he may have just turned 15. Like, I think his birthday was January the 12th or something. And the thing is, people used to disassociate themselves, like, well, these kids live this type of life. But that doesn't matter for one thing, but you're getting kids who are athletes at school, regular citizens, things of that nature. Byron.
A 16-year-old.
A 16-year-old.
Played basketball, I think.
We had a student killed at Watson Chapel in the hallway where classmates were walking by the dead body. And what do? We just never talk about it again. We act like it didn't happen. But don't you know that those parents think about that every single day? I sent my child to school.
Every time they see a school
and they
bus.
did not come back. When you go to schools now, and I know people say it's like this all across the country. I don't care about that. When I go to schools now, it feel like a juvenile detention facility. You got to look at a camera. You have to be buzzed in. You have to go through a metal detector. What is that telling you all? And I feel like it's not being addressed. And I get we want to talk about the positive things going on in this community. But if you don't have that luxury in leadership, you have to talk about everything, because if you're not having a conversation, that tells me you're not actually coming up with viable solutions to try to at least attempt to solve these problems.
So this summer, the city, when this was getting bad,
Mm-hmm.
summer, the city brought in some gang violence professional. I don't know if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as I know, they came, made some headlines, and left. The main researcher, kind of like a Matthew Pate,
Mm-hmm.
smart person, said Pine Bluff had the tools necessary to confront violence. Shouldn't we be inviting professionals in to address this problem, or are we just content to keep our head in the sand and act like it's not happening?
He was right. Pine Bluff has the resources. We do. We're just not organized. And you have a lot of people using these things mainly for headlines rather than actually addressing the problems behind the scenes. So think about my platform for mayor. We need to know every nonprofit, every service out there, because it's one thing to go to these kids and say, hey, stop committing crimes, don't participate, don't have a gun. But if you're not addressing the social issues that more than likely most of them are going through at home, if you're not addressing that our 12th graders can't read past a 5th grade level, if you're not addressing how dyslexia has increased, ADHD has increased, and how autism has increased, like these kids are dealing with some major stuff. And their behavior is a cry out. Kids aren't naturally violent like this. Kids aren't naturally killers. So you have that one aspect on the social side. And the city, they'll say, well, we don't get into that because we don't provide social services. But the city could be that centralized location that organizes it so that parents can have resources. The city could also be the place that people go who want to be more involved can be redirected, and the city can also help the schools. We can start collecting data. We can start letting the schools know, hey, this type of kid, if they move more than 4 times, or if their GPA is this, if their reading level is this, these are your at-risk youth. These are the ones more prone to crime. Help alleviate some of the tension from the schools. And another conversation that we have to have, Byron, these young people are not running these criminal rings. There is an adult behind all of this, and more than likely a smart middle-class citizen who probably wears suits, someone that you would not expect. These kids can't go get guns. These kids aren't the ones getting the drugs. These kids are being used because if they are caught, because they are juveniles, they don't have to serve as much time. And a lot of these children are poor, and they're being preyed upon because they don't have anything to go back to. And it's heartbreaking to see, and we know this. And so I think any resource, anyone coming in here to help is great, but they have to come here, and we have to already have something in place for them to actually impactfully give their input towards. Because right now, they're coming here, we're having a meeting, same citizens showing up, and then they leave, and everything goes back to normal because it's like, well, it looks like we're about to address this. And so we have GVI here.
Right.
But it may need to be some things that GVI could be doing to better address these things that's going on in our community.
It may take more than GVI to.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah.
A friend was telling me, had an 18-year-old who did some light work around there at this business. And they came to work recently, and they were, look at my new gun. 18 years old. And they said, why are you carrying a gun? Well, in case for protection, like for protection from what? In case somebody comes after me, I guess. And it was like, you know, the casual nature of, I mean, 18-year-old, I mean, that's an adult, but really they're just a baby.
Yeah.
Carrying a gun like it's like a new baseball glove or something. Just sort of floored me. So I have a little, I want you to hear something.
And did he obtain the gun legally?
Okay, so this was recorded at my house on December 31st, 2020. So in the, listening to that, across the years I found this.
Byron, give them a vicinity where you live at.
This is near JRMC.
So you only hear this New Year's. Because my previous house on Martin Place.
I'm sorry, that's not funny.
No, but that's what you heard almost every night. And it used to start around like 3 o'clock in the morning. To the point I got so used to it that
Just random gunfire?
yeah, every night.
Is it this up in the air, or is it?
It's different things. It's not pistols anymore. It's never that anymore. It's I mean, it's just rapid gunfire every night. And I got so used to it that when I didn't hear gunshots that woke me up,
It woke you up.
then I noticed it. Oh, they also don't shoot when it rains. So, but yeah, this is what people are hearing every night. Even when there was a shortage on bullets around COVID time, it never ceased.
Wow. Well, one of the things I noticed this year, and I don't know, I'm not a gun person, but it sounded like a machine gun.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's bump stock thing, but it was so fast, it just sounded like a hum.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't just play that just for kicks, but I'm wondering, there's a certain casual nature that we have in Pine Bluff with weapons and shooting. It's against the law, I'm sure, discharging a firearm in the city. But you never hear any sort of, I mean, we hear more about don't litter than we do about discharge. I mean, I don't think the police department doesn't ever say that's illegal. And especially if you're hearing it or used to hear it on Martin Street, a lot. I mean, I have heard it, cause I'll go to the track at the high school, the old track, and walk and, so forth, and it'll be 4 in the afternoon, and it'll be pow, 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 and everybody there for a second just like stops. UAPB track teams out there was like, and then we go back to our daily broadcast.
Well,
we don't publicize that. We don't tell people that's wrong and stop, or try to dissuade people from doing that. So we just take that as
why
par for the
would
course.
you publicize it? Because as the mayor, if you bring this up, what are people in the comments going to say? They're going to talk about you and your responsibility to address it. It's easier to talk about litter. That's the best explanation I can give towards that. But it is a problem. And, you know, we were talking about homicides earlier, right?
Yeah.
Those stats are troubling, but if people truly knew how many people were getting shot on a daily basis here, if those numbers were shared with the public, we probably wouldn't even go outside.
I found a slug while I was walking my dog,
Mm.
just in the street,
Yeah.
you know, probably a lot I missed.
Mhm.
Um,
How bad does it have to get?
how bad?
What has to happen? Who has to be hurt? Who
Well, I
has to
mean,
be killed?
if you said, here's Pine Bluff on December 31st, and perhaps you could say, here's Pine Bluff on, you know, July 10th. What does that tell anybody considering to move here? Or tell people who live here and think, I'm getting the hell out of here, which is apparently what a lot of people have done because
Mhm.
our population keeps dropping, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, how's your campaign going?
Everything is going good. You know, it's funny because this one seems easier than when I ran for city council.
Did you have an opponent when you ran for city council?
Yes, I ran against Ms. Walker.
Okay.
And then we had a runoff, and then I had to go for the general. But I think maybe because I have more of a platform now, but I will say this one is messier than when I first ran for city council. But I'm used to campaigning now, so it's kind of a part of everyday life, because even campaigning against Go Forward was still some type of campaigning. So I've been campaigning since going against Go Forward in April of last year. And so it was just rolling over to new campaigns as we go.
What are your donors saying?
What are my donors saying?
I mean, what I heard it last night. It's like Nikki Haley is saying she's going to keep campaigning, and somebody said nobody ever runs out of reasons to campaign for president. They just run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
So you're asking people for donations to help fund your campaign, I assume. What,
Oh, yeah.
What are those people saying?
I'll tell you this. So for my fundraiser, we sold over 700 tickets. So the participation is great. But something that is a red flag to me. Now, usually when you're running, someone will say, I like you and the person you're running against, but I do support you, and I'm going to, donate to your campaign, but don't tell the other person you're running against. I'm used to that.
Yeah.
I've heard that several times.
Well, it's a small community.
But do you know what I'm hearing now? I don't want Tommy May to know that I'm supporting you.
Because that's going to backfire on you.
Mm-hmm. On them, not on me.
On them.
They don't want him to know that they are supporting me. I've heard that more than I've heard I don't want Shirley to know I'm supporting you.
Interesting.
That has been the they're still supporting, but they don't want it to get back to him.
Well, I had somebody call me up during the Go Forward campaign, and they had a sign in their yard,
Mm-hmm.
but they had been sort of forced to put a sign in their yard. And they called to say, I'm against this thing, but I feel pressure to put a sign in the yard, but I think it's a bad thing. And so
Yeah.
I guess in the same way, it's like outwardly facing you're not going to run afoul of Go Forward, but
Yeah,
your
just to,
checkbook is gonna
but
support
just
you.
in case,
Yeah. I saw re-election signs in a yard the other day. On one end of the same property, there was your sign, and on this end was one for Vivian Flowers.
Mhm.
Now, are you two? Do you think you all are splitting similar votes? Do you think people supporting her would support the mayor, or?
I'll say this. I announced first in July. Everyone else announced in November. I am a totally different candidate than the type of administration we have now. So there is no taking from either side to me with that dynamic. Everyone else in the race, to me, kind of stay in that safe middle lane. And I think that they're going to take more votes from Shirley than they would take from me. But having more people in the race is going to lessen votes anyway because there's more options. But I think the type of candidate I am, people know where I stand. People know that I'm going to give them my honest opinion. And so I have a certain type of voter and support. And it makes me go back to a question that you asked me earlier that I didn't answer. I think you asked me like 6 questions at once my defense. But you brought up go forward and me changing my mind. Can people trust me or something like that? I'll say this. I think that's a weak argument. And I say that because that's like telling someone who decides to divorce their spouse, like, you chose to marry him, you should stay with him, or if you get a new job. I think anyone in leadership, once they get new information, they can evolve and they can have a difference of opinion. And to try to keep leadership in this box of who they were from the first day they got in there, I think is also a sorry argument. And it is a lot of the reason why a bunch of people in leadership, they're not honest with their constituents. Because Byron, you have to understand that I'm just not on this kick by myself. There are a lot of people, and behind the scenes, most of us agree 80% of the time on the same things. There are a lot of people, even in city leadership, who was feeling a certain type of way about go forward. But they knew that they would be attacked, and they did not use their platform to tell the truth and inform their citizens. So to say that someone changed their mind and that's a bad thing, I think everyone is going to grow and evolve in these positions, especially when you get new information. And if the taxes aren't being spent the way that they were agreed upon, as a leader who's over the budget, who deals with taxes, I had to put the truth out there.
This actually leads into my next question. Thank you for fixing that.
Yeah.
Does Pine Bluff use its tax dollars wisely?
We use them legally.
Well, maybe. I mean, they did get sort of slapped around.
Yeah,
at
we
the
play in
legislative audit.
we play in that gray area a lot. Wisely, no. And I say that because we don't even have a strategic plan. You know, with every administration, our city government, sorry, I have a piece of hair that's bothering me. With every administration we start over. There is no, we're keeping stuff going across this line. Our government just completely starts over. And I'll give you an example. Economic and community development. They receive grant dollars from the state. Resources for people dealing with homelessness or rehabbing houses. They have carryover every year. Them lines should be depleted every single year. When you look at any new type of revenue that the city receives, instead of us using it for infrastructure and capital purchases first, we commit all that money to something that's reoccurring, like salaries. And so, casino, for instance, if their numbers ever go down, we've already obligated that money to salaries. So we've missed an opportunity for capital purchases and different things we could catch up on, like equipment for the street department, for them to do a better job than what they're doing, handling our infrastructure. I don't know if you know this, but our bridges, you know, I call it invisible infrastructure. The things people don't see that's being done. But the one on 28, we almost had to block that one off because of some work we had to do under it. And citizens, you know, you don't know, you're just driving through town, but yeah. It's things like that, and it's always a reactive approach. And that's why I say we're not good stewards of it. It's never, we know that we have to do maintenance on our bridges, let's do an assessment. It's always like, this bridge, this beam is damaged. Now we have to do something about it. And so even with the budget season, the only departments, excuse me, the budget is really the same. Nothing has ever really changed. Every department still gets the same percentage, and usually we're adding more expenses. So even though we're getting more revenue,
We now have more debt. The cost of things have went up, and so I mean I could go on with this for hours, but I think we could be doing a better job.
So, again, this leads into my next question. Do we need a sales tax to operate? I mean, the 5/8 cent tax is, at this moment, is going away. And it would appear that money from that tax feeds into a lot of different areas of the city that you might or might not think was a go-forward type project. But, you know, we get money from the casino, which we didn't have. You mentioned that. Do we really need more money to make the train go?
No, it's almost like if you have someone who doesn't know how to spend money and they ask to borrow money, that's not going to help their issue with not knowing how to manage their money, manage their finances.
So you're saying we have been irresponsible?
Yeah, we've been irresponsible, and we spend it almost like, well, we know now we can get another sales tax from the citizens. To the point we almost taxed ourselves, gave us ourselves another forever tax. And we're also putting ourselves in debt with longer terms than we have historically in the past.
Explain that.
So most municipalities, when you go into debt, you're not doing something on a 30-year term. You know, you're doing something, it's usually shorter than that. So what we have on some of our books, because we do have debt, we have some things that will not be paid off until 2040 something. And it makes our payments less, but our financial portfolio, when you have things that long on your books, you're setting up the next crew of leaders, you know, when we're long gone, to be paying for debt for something that did or did not work, for something that was an idea under
like
our
financing
tenure.
a car for 84 months or something.
Yeah,
It's
which we don't usually use it for that, thank God. But at the rate we're going, I could see us doing that in the future just because we can do it. And so, like I told you earlier, before we have the nerve to ask these citizens to give us another tax, to tax themselves even more than they're already being taxed, we at least need to be good stewards of the tax dollars that we are getting. We have 12 departments that serve a direct service to citizens right now.
Is that too many?
No, that's what the tax is for. That's what the city of Pine Bluff is for, to give you all services. We have the collector's office, inspection and zoning, animal control. We have the police, we have fire, community development. We have the street department. We have district court. We have the cemetery. We have parks and rec. We have, and it's a couple more that I can't think of at the moment, but those things are not even doing what they're supposed to be doing efficiently. So why are we asking you all for another tax? What are we going to do with it? Just give more people raises? And I think before we ask the citizens for another tax, we have to make sure that they're getting the bang for their buck right now. And you have to, a lot of people say, well, the tax wasn't that much, it's just 5/8 of a penny. Yeah, if that was the only tax we were paying. But you think about a business owner that owns a restaurant, they're being taxed out the wazoo. And you mean
3
we're
cents,
trying,
I think.
yeah, and you got the hamburger, you have state, you have federal, you have all these city taxes. It's just
Franchise.
your franchise fees and taxes as well. And it's like, so you say you're trying to attract small businesses here, and on the same token, add another tax to the community. And yes, of course, Byron, in any situation, more money is always, will always make something better. Or someone, even the richest person, will take an opportunity to get more money. But I'm telling you, the way that we do our budget and spending our money, it could be done more efficiently. And then once you work out all those kinks and you figure out what needs still are not being met, then you go to the citizens with something that is specific, with something that's not a forever tax, just to help you play catch up for all the deficiencies that we have neglected for the last 3 decades.
Something when you were introducing, when you were talking about your background, most of what you were saying was your time in city government, in and around. But some of what you were just saying about loans sounds like it is fed directly by your professional job as a loan officer.
Yeah, and it's something. So my role at the bank is Director of Community Outreach. So I'm a loan officer, but also with that, I have to make sure that we're in compliance with the Community Reinvestment Act. So I have to make sure that we have enough products that are going to low to moderate income tracts and to minorities. And we also create products for those very tracts. And so not only am I looking at it from a standpoint from banking, I'm looking at it, I know my customers that come in that bank, and I know their financial portfolio. We have people here that are extremely impoverished. We have people here that 5/8 of a penny may not be much to me and you, but it makes a difference. We have people whose debt to income, they're getting limited income only on Social Security. I've seen someone who's only getting $200 a month with Social Security. I've seen someone who's getting $1,800 a month with Social Security, and they're having to pay their bills. Like, we have to do our due diligence as leadership and not just paint a picture for those that are like us, but we have to also represent the people who are not like us as well. And me being in banking has really painted that full picture, even outside of my experience in government and working in the nonprofit sector, of the issues that really plague the city from a number of different vantage points.
What kind of job do you think Police Chief Richardson is doing? And would you keep her on? And what about other department heads?
Well, I don't plan on going in firing anyone. I plan on doing a fair assessment of every department. I plan on hearing all department heads out about their vision that they have for their department, and at the same time sharing my vision for that department. And if we can meet in the middle, business will go on as it should. But there are some things that I try not to give my opinion about it, because I know how that executive branch operates right now. And I know the requirements sometimes that the mayor's office have on its department heads. And so some things have happened with that PD that I have not been very fond of. But I don't know if it's 100% the police chief or if it's the directive of the police chief's direct supervisor. And so I'm not going to go in there and just make an assumption just based off of my opinions and feelings, or just the way things seem to be when it may not even be that way.
Is everyone seated at the table in Pine Bluff?
Oh, no. I mean, which sector do you want to talk about? I remember when the police chief, when we were hiring for a police chief before she hired Franklin, and the guy came down, was it Alabama or Texas? Georgia, that's where he came from. And they allowed the council members to go and meet him. And it was said that he's also met with the business community. Which business community? Who were these people in the room? No one I know that owned a small business knew that they had an opportunity to meet this guy. To the point that...
The hand-picked business community.
Yes, and to the extent that he wanted to come in, that's before we gave the police their raises. He wanted to come in making 6 figures.
Yeah.
And the council was saying, we don't mind giving the police chief a raise, but we're not going to give the police chief a raise at their individual capacity and not give the rest of the officers raises. And what type of chief would want to do that anyway? So people make it seem as if we fought against getting a new chief. It's like, no, but if we're going to give raises to the PD, we're giving them across the board. And then the statement was made at a council meeting on record, because the council would not approve his salary increase, that the business community is willing to
Make up slack.
give $40,000 towards his salary. That's like quid pro quo. You can't. That's not legal. You can't do that. And then I had concerns for anyone coming to take that type of job, and you're not moving your wife or your children here.
Oh, that's
They were
right.
going to stay in Georgia. And so that's from the business standpoint. If you talk about city council, if you're not a part of the clique, you know nothing. And I'll give you an example. When it was announced that the $32 million for drainage was coming here,
Yeah.
I was on the council. I received a text message, come to this meeting, it's urgent. I go to the meeting. It's people here from DC. They're announcing that
And you didn't know anything about it.
I knew nothing about it. They're announcing that we're getting $32 million for drainage. And what a lot of people don't know is that we almost did not get, or we started gambling with the $32 million. So you mind if I go into detail with this? So the Arkansas Black Mayors Association is the stewards of this
Right.
money.
Right.
And this is the largest amount ever given, especially to minority populations. And I want to say the amount was like $90-some million. But they were going to be the administrators over it, right? Well, the city of Pine Bluff, the mayor, wanted Pine Bluff to be over their money since they were getting the bulk of the money. But that means that you would have to reapply or send your request back to DC.
Because the money went to them, and you're saying, we need to have our
Yeah.
own money and run it the way we
We
see
want to
fit.
manage it as we see fit. And so
Did you see that as a place where there could have been some corruption?
I saw that as a huge issue first and foremost, because you sending it back, we may not get any of it. You're going through a presidential election. The parties are feuding. Like, you're trying to get some money sent back to this red state for blue communities in this state. And also, they could have said, well, you're not getting the 32. We'll give you 15. So anyway, she wouldn't sign the letter.
I don't remember.
And not only was she not signing the letter, she was getting other mayors to kind of say, we want to withdraw and let Pine Bluff handle ours too. Until DC basically sent a letter saying it would be in your best interest to sign that letter. She goes back to ABA, and you can call them and get this on record if you need to. Arkansas Black Mayors Association. And she tells them, well, I'll sign the letter, but I'm not going to sign it unless Pine Bluff can choose the contractors. Why would we need to choose the contractors? And it made me go back to when they announced the $32 million.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Watley was there, and he stood up and he asked
I
that
remember
question.
this.
He asked that question, is the money restricted?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I'm like, why would you, and
Why
why
would you
would
care?
you even ask that question? And so she ended up signing the letter. They did not go with her stipulations for us picking all the contractors and things of that nature. But this is the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that no one has an idea about. We were about to gamble with an opportunity of a lifetime. Byron, our drainage is bad. We have an issue, $32 million. I wouldn't play with that and send that back to handle it. Now, I'm going to be looking at your books to make sure the money is being spent the way that it's supposed to.
Yeah. That was actually one of my questions, so
Mm.
thank you. So we've got, our population's been dropping. I don't know how far under 40,000 it is, although our signs still say 47, I
Yeah,
think.
and the 40 is including inmates
Yeah.
too, so.
We've lost a grocery store. We're losing a furniture store. Those are hardly the only businesses that have closed their doors over the years.
Mm-hmm.
What's the bottom for Pine Bluff? And maybe a better question would be, what can a mayor do to keep Pine Bluff from further deterioration?
Byron, I think we're at the bottom. And I think to act like we're not at the bottom is really just a blatant disrespect to a lot of people's experiences here in this community. I think first we have to say the quiet parts out loud.
Yeah.
we have to talk about the things that's going on that is concerning not only leadership, but the citizens and the issues that they're having day to day. Byron, across the board, we are getting DNF ratings. If you were to grade us, if you were to grade our schools, they're not doing good. I just saw numbers from one district that their 12th graders, they called the 6th through 8th reading level advanced. Our 12th graders across the board got 0 on those tests, meaning that they can't even read past a 5th grade level. So we talk about the workforce on one hand, but what about the school force? What are we going to do when they're grown and they don't qualify for anything but some minimum wage job? How are we going to attract people here when there are no educational institutions for them to go to? The 10th graders at the same district, only 11% of them were reading at the actual level that they should be. 11%. 11%. How many of those, once they graduate, are going to stay in Pine Bluff? Not all of them. So we're losing even the ones who could contribute to our economy. Our middle class is shrinking. The community is going through PTSD like 90 going north. You know, it is so many variables here in almost every sector, and none of it is being addressed. And so I don't have an answer for it across the board, but I do have solutions for it when it comes to municipal government and city government and things that we could be doing to address a lot of these issues that we're not even talking about.
Yeah, I was gonna bring up the school system, a little out of your lane, or would be out of your lane as mayor, but it's still, you know, you've got Whitehall running laps around us.
Yeah.
And what is, you know, you have mentioned this many times, family moving to the area, wife, husband has a job, and where do they live?
Mm-hmm.
Do you put down roots in Pine Bluff, or someplace else? And
I'll say this, I've lived in many different places, and I never looked or sought after a place with the dynamics of a city like Pine Bluff, and most people don't when they have a choice of where they are moving to. When it comes to the schools, even though the city doesn't have any authority over the schools, there are things we could be doing. Right now, Byron, with the LEARNS Act, graduating seniors will have to have, I believe, 70 hours of volunteer work. That's something right now that the city could be trying to help organize, because not every child has a parent that has access to someone who owns a business to give them hours. You're going to have even a larger rift between the impoverished kids and your middle class kids, because how are they going to get those hours? They may not even have transportation. But it's things like this that the city could be preparing for right now that is coming down the road, that we know is coming, in ways we can reach out to businesses. All businesses have to pay their occupational tax to get their license. We have their contact information. It could just be a way of organizing just to help the schools and the counselors who are already overwhelmed with the job that they have.
This summer? How many?
Yeah.
We, you know, the Jefferson County, through the Alliance, has its own outfit that focuses on industry. They're a pretty quiet bunch. Is there anything a mayor can do to jumpstart bringing industry, clean industry? And I'll finish that by saying, why don't we have curbside recycling? So.
That's county. I'll leave there with the recycling. County is over that one, but I'm on the board, the tax board, that deals with the Alliance and Chamber, and
the tax board that used to have a sales tax, but
exactly.
How
But
much money
they
do you all have?
sunsetted. It was about 12 million. May have spent a little bit of it to incentivize some roads being built for some of those properties. But that main focus is on industry, and it's mainly industrial park. And then the stipulations by state statute are so strict that you can't really go outside of it. Like most of your production, a certain percentage has to go outside of the state of Arkansas to even qualify for those types of things. But who's to say that the city can't partner with the chamber when it comes to helping more so from the small business standpoint? Because if you think about it, Byron, your small business is really your backbone of your community. If you combine them all together, they employ more people than any of those large industries do. And the difference between a small business, even if 3 of them shut down, it doesn't change the course of our economy. If Tyson was to shut down, it's going to turn the city upside down. You know, if another prison was to close, it's going to turn our city upside down. And so I think there has to be a focus. And there are so many businesses doing everything they can to stay here against the odds, that are dealing with a lot of things because of this community. But the city isn't doing everything to keep them here. And that's the same thing with a lot of our residents. And I'm an example of that. You know, move here. Move into a neighborhood, keep your property up, volunteer work, pay your taxes, you know, be positive and all those things. But you're putting this responsibility on the backs of citizens, but you're not giving them any resources. You're not giving them any advocacy. And when they're caught up in something where they're being victimized by this climate and culture of crime that's plaguing this city, you do nothing because you don't want negative headlines. And so it's not the citizens' responsibility. They elect people for these types of things. And I think to keep putting a burden on the citizens is just an easy way of being a scapegoat for leadership not actually doing what they are supposed to be doing.
Just a reminder for our listeners, that was a reference to when you were armed, you were robbed at gunpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And in your estimation, that was not handled very well.
It wasn't handled. I mean, 3 guys robbed me, only one.
And he was the one that you all found.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And this is the thing about him. I never get a call about when my court case is. And this is another thing that sets me apart from the other candidates. I've actually been a victim of crime here. And I know the deficiencies that's going on with victim advocacy here in Pine Bluff. So, Whitmore, I called to get a new court date. You know, they're always changing your court dates. And so I was told, well, he got another felony. I said, he got another felony in jail? No, he was out.
And nobody told you?
No
The guy
one,
that
no one
robbed
told
you
me.
or
Yep.
alleged to have robbed you at gunpoint?
No one told me he was out. And no one told me he committed another crime.
Well, Joni, that's all the questions I've got. You want to end with a?
Well, we got some Q&A from
Okay.
the
Okay,
audience.
good.
You
Okay.
ready?
Yes.
I'll start from the top.
Give me some water. It sounds like it's a lot. Is it a lot?
You got some questions and you have some comments, but
Mhm.
I'll just stick with the questions and you can go back and let's see. What is the first step you would do to change things in Pine Bluff?
The first step is get an understanding of the deficiencies from not just my viewpoint. Like, I know a lot of the deficiencies going on, but do it in a way that's data oriented so that when we do set goals, there's measurability. So I can't just say, hey, we implemented this new program, it's going great, but actually show people like we've decreased in this by this percentage from this year versus this year. So making sure that we have the proper resources to do data analysis, and also a way to present it to the public so that they can keep up with every new thing and venture that we have going on.
What do you guys have in place with some of the people who are dying in your county jails?
The city,
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this, even though the county jail is under the county, when you have people dying in your city, period. I don't care whose jurisdiction or who's over it. I think something needs to be said out loud, and something needs to be done even behind the scenes and in front of the cameras. And to me, it's crazy that the city of Pine Bluff has not taken a stance on, we're going to make sure all of our citizens are protected, even those who have not been proven to be innocent or guilty. They still have rights.
Is there anything you could do as mayor to help the quorum court be a little more functional?
No. And I'll say this. I get insulted when people say the quorum court acts like the city council used to. It boils my blood, because I think as far as the theatrics, entertainment to people who watch it, yes. But the difference is the city always handled city business, and we always had decorum. We always respected the opinion of our attorneys, whether we agreed or disagreed. And no matter if we liked or disliked or agreed or disagreed with the mayor, we always respected that position. Byron, just imagine that the people, when the council was split and the ones that were against go forward, imagine if they started having their own council meetings and hired their own attorney and appointed a council member to be a mayor at those meetings. It would have been nipped in the bud immediately.
I do recall when 4 black aldermen walked out at one point years ago.
But they walked out. They didn't stage a coup and start their own council meetings.
And Debbie Hollingsworth did not get the full benefit of everybody's
But
politeness.
they still did it by Robert's Rules of Order. They may not have been polite, but nobody was like circumventing the current government and creating their own
shadow, like let's just have another council meeting after this.
It's been a lot of times our city attorney has had an opinion that I did not agree with. But guess what? I'm not an attorney. We didn't go hire another attorney to give us the opinion we wanted. So I'm sorry to that person. That's really up to you guys, the voters, to understand that the city always handled their business, and the county has to do the same. An election is coming up for quorum court as well.
What is the solution from the mayor's standpoint to make sure our young people are educated and reading beyond their grade level?
Are they asking about the current mayor? Because that, I don't know. Or
as mayor,
that they're reading. Honestly, I don't have a solution for that. I don't. If there was something that the schools wanted and it was a way that the city could partner with them to help make that happen, whether it be an after-school program, use of a city facility, as mayor, I would be on board with anything that makes sense, that we can afford, that's within our legal ramifications of what we can do as a city. But me right now, in my individual capacity, I don't have a solution for that.
This looks like the last question. How are you going to address the deficiencies for prosecuting criminals?
That's county too. And you all have to understand that's also an elected position. And I'm not just saying just vote everyone out that you think that they're not doing a good job. I think first we have to get an understanding of the job, do a fair assessment, and if you're still not pleased, that is you all's right to elect your prosecuting attorney. And me, speaking personally as a victim, I don't think that office, along with other ones, are really doing what they could be doing to lessen the blow of when you're going through things in this community. Because it was one thing for me to get robbed. That was traumatic within itself. But what I dealt with after that, it just kind of compounded that trauma. And so I don't know if it's a conversation that needs to be had. I don't know if they've become detached from the human experience of victims, but that is something I think that needs to be handled better.
I told a lie. I scrolled back up on this one. There is too much being swept under the rug with taxes, sheriff issues, jail issues, etc. What plans do you have in place for these things?
Well, on the city side, I plan on being transparent. If I have to come somewhere and give a speech, I'm going to tell people the truth. People may stop inviting me to things, but I think as the mayor, as leadership, we have to give you all the picture as plain as day. And even if it gets us scrutinized, even if it gets us judged for our job, we have to tell you all the truth. Because at the end of the day, the city of Pine Bluff, the voters, you all are adults. And to act as if we have to coddle you to protect you from the harsh realities when you're living in the harsh realities, I think that that's just doing a disservice to the way we can be partnering better with our citizens.
One more just came in 1 minute ago. What is the role of the Pine Bluff Community Development, and who makes sure that the millions of dollars they receive are spent properly?
That's a good question.
Can the mayor tell the director what to spend money on without city council approval?
Okay, so you have two different aspects of community development. One of it is their grants that they get from like state and federal resources. So those grants have different rules for them. Like, let's say one can be used towards homelessness. So no, the mayor couldn't tell them use this one for the elderly, but the way in which we're using it for the homeless can be changed and redirected. And the mayor does have that authority, that you wouldn't have to go to council, because you're not necessarily changing legislation or the budget. So the only time you really have to go to your council is when you're changing legislation or the budget. But if you have programs in place and they're not efficient, the mayor can, in their authority, which is day-to-day operations, go in and make some adjustments.
That's all I had.
The floor is yours.
I just want to tell the citizens of Pine Bluff that we have to look at this as if the mayor's position is the CEO of a corporation. And not in the traditional business sense where you pay for a product, right, or service, but you technically are paying for a service on the front end that the city should be providing to you. And anytime you're looking for a CEO, the best type of CEO to have is someone who have worked their ranks up through the company. And I am the only person running for mayor on the ballot that has served at the various capacities, whether it be an employee in the clerk's office, chief of staff to the mayor, on the city council, and now I'm running for mayor. So I've worked in this office. I've been a citizen here. I am a banker here. I'm a small business owner here. I ran a nonprofit here. I have the advantages and the different contexts and viewpoints that a lot of other candidates do not have. And I've not only worked for a mayor, I've worked with a mayor. So it's full of a picture that can be painted. I have it. And I hope that you all consider it from more of a business standpoint than a personal standpoint, and elect who is the best qualified for this position as your next mayor of Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. Thank you, Eclemus Colvin, for putting all this together and working through our technical difficulties.
That I caused.
Oh, that's right, you dropped the mic. Thanks for sticking with us through this. We will, this will be the first of several, and we will try to get around to all the mayoral candidates.
Let them know tomorrow we'll have Mayor Washington, so.
Tomorrow at 10 o'clock?
She is a 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, we've got Mayor Shirley Washington in for another segment of the newsroom.